Good day, all kings and queens, all gods and goddesses, all beautiful people. I am B Floss the God, and today just want to talk about belief, right? When it comes to belief and manifesting, all right? Now, you do not have to believe in order to manifest, okay? But with belief backed up with persistence, right? You can have the most amazing life with no worries, right? You can experience heaven on earth every single day with no worries. Okay? Now, let me explain what I mean by you do not have to believe in order to manifest. Okay? Now, I'm going to explain this with two examples. All right? Now, there's a guy by the name of E.O. Locker Jr., right? He was a past student of Neville Goddard, right? Now, I'm going to put the link. The link is in my description box. There are two links, right? Number one and number two, right? And these links is with this same gentleman, E.O. Locker Jr., right? Where he was explaining his experience in using the law successfully, and also his experience with Neville Goddard, right? In an interview. Now, as I said before, I'm gonna put the links in my description box. So feel free to click the links and you could watch the interviews from there, right? Now, before this same gentleman, E.O. Locker Jr., before he became a student of Neville Goddard, right? He was hearing about Neville Goddard and his teachings, right? And what he was teaching at the time about how using your imagination, you can co-create your life, right? And that the human imagination is God, right? Now, he had no belief whatsoever, right? In what Neville Goddard was teaching at the time. So one day, he just decided to go and pay Neville a visit in terms of where he was preaching at the time, right? So one day he just decided to go, to prove that Neville Goddard is a fraud, right? Because as I said before, he had no belief whatsoever in what Neville Goddard was teaching. He thought that Neville Goddard was a fraud. So he basically just went this day to prove that he was right and that Neville Goddard was basically just a fraud. Okay, so when he went on this particular day, he remembered um, Neville Goddard. As Neville Goddard came on the stage, we remember Neville Goddard saying that he does not want any money from them, meaning E.O. Locker Jr. and the rest of people who would have come to hear Neville Goddard's teaching on that day, right? He remembered Neville saying he does not want their money, right? And he remembered Neville also saying that any person who wants to teach you how to be healthy, wealthy, and wise and needs your money is a fraud. And he heard those words coming straight and direct from Neville's mouth, right? And upon him hearing this, he was like, nah, something ain't right, There's something ain't right here. This guy has to be a fraud, one way or the other, right? Because he wasn't expecting to hear that, right? So what happened that day was Neville, he ended up giving those who were there that came to hear him to hear his teachings that day, he gave each and every one of them an exercise to do, right? Including the same guy, E.O. Locker Jr., because he was just basically there to prove that Neville Goddard was a fraud, right? So Neville gave them this exercise to do where they would use their imagination night after night, right? For a certain amount of time. And in this imaginal exercise, they would be climbing a ladder, right? They would climb a ladder in their imagination night after night, right? And right, so he gave them that exercise to do for a couple nights, right? Which was night after night. And they would have to come and report to him the following week, right? The following Sunday, right? Which was the next week. Those who would have been successful, in manifesting what they did in their imagination, basically claiming the ladder, right? Now, E.O. Locker Jr., he decided to do the exercise, right? Just to prove that he was right and that Neville Goddard was just a fraud, right? So he did the imaginal act where he was claiming the ladder, right? For a couple nights, night after night, right? And within a couple days, he did manifest claiming the ladder, right? And what had happened was his mother had called him at the time. He wasn't living with her. She had called him at the time and told him she wanted him to come and do something for her, right? And what he went to do for her basically included climbing a ladder, right? And it was only when he was halfway up the ladder that he was like, shit, it actually worked. He actually climbed the ladder, right? No. From what you can see, from what happened there, he manifested climbing the ladder, but he had no belief whatsoever. He just did it to prove that Neville Goddard was a fraud and that he was right. But it actually worked, right? And he had no belief whatsoever, but he still manifested it, right? Because he persisted in it, right? Not because he believed, but because he just wanted to prove a point, right? But the point is, he manifested because he persisted, right? No. Remember, I said they were to report to Neville the following Sunday, right? Those who would have been successful. And E.O. Locker Jr., he did report the following Sunday, right? With the others who would have been successful with the imaginal act in claiming the ladder, right? Now, he didn't had to go. He didn't have to go back the following Sunday. He could have said, well, man, this would have happened anyhow. You know, he could have stuck with the disbelief, that it just happened randomly, it would have happened any old how. But because he had experienced it, he went from having zero belief to some type of belief, right? Even if it was just 1% belief, because he did go back the following Sunday, which mean, by him experiencing that, he has some type of belief now, even if it was just 1% belief, as I said, right? Because he went back the following Sunday to hear more, right? And if you watch the interviews, you would see that he had grown to be a very huge, successful man, right? Not only in dollars and cents, because he was very wealthy. He became very wealthy, persisting and using the law, but not only in dollars and cents, but he became wealthy in terms of knowing who he truly is, right? And that is God, the co-creator of his life, and that he can have anything he wants, right? And that his human imagination is God, which is himself, right? So from this example, you can see, right, that he even though he didn't had any belief in the beginning, no belief whatsoever, he still was able to manifest, right, in terms of claiming the ladder, right? And because he persisted in it, even though he just wanted to prove a point, right, it led to him having some type of belief, right, which then eventually, you know, um, led him to even deeper belief, right, because from him going back the following Sunday, he continued to use the law, his everyday life, right. He went to even deeper belief, and then that deeper belief eventually went to knowing, because as I said before, he became a very huge successful man, right, financially, right, successful in knowing who he truly is, right, and that is God. All right, so that was example number one, right? Example number two. There was a lady who Neville Goddard had mentioned in one of his lectures, right? This lady who had an issue with her daughter's soon-to-be husband at that point in time, right? Now, her issue with him was that he had a lot of beard on his face. He had a lot of hair on his face, right? And she didn't like it at all because she wanted him to look even more presentable for when it was time for him to marry her daughter, and not having all that beard and hair on his face, right? So I think she had spoken to him about it. She had addressed him about it. She wasn't successful. She even addressed her daughter about it, and she wasn't successful, right? But she knew Neville Goddard, and she knew Neville Goddard's teachings about the law. So she went to Neville, right? And because because she took the issue to Neville, it meant she has some type of belief. Because where would she go to Neville then, right? Saying that he teaches the law, so she had to had some type of belief, right? Whether in the law or in Neville and what he was teaching. Anyhow, the point is she has some type of belief. So she went to Neville about the issue, and he told her to basically, just use your imagination. See him in your imagination with a smooth face. Touch his face. Feel it. Feel the smoothness of his face. Right? And, she went along and she did the imaginal act. And within a couple of days, right, it manifested. No, this is what happened. When it manifested, she went back to Neville and told Neville, well, she did the exercise. She imagined seeing him in her imagination having smooth skin and what's not, right? And it basically manifested. But this is what she told Neville also, that it wasn't her imaginal acts that brought that about, right? It was because her daughter told him to get the shave. That is why he shaved the beard, right? So she went from having some type of belief, right, to having zero belief in what she did. Even though she did it and she experienced it, she had zero belief. She still she was basically um referring back to the 3D way of thinking, that, well, it's because her daughter told him to get the shave, and that is why she didn't believe in her own wonderful human imagination. She didn't believe that that was the cause, and that was the reason why it was brought about, right? But also in this example, as you can see, she didn't have full belief, right? But she had some type of belief. All right, she has some type of belief to begin with. Whereas E.O. Locker Jr., he had no belief whatsoever. He just did it to prove a point, right? So she has some type of belief. She went along and she did the act, but she had no belief, no, in terms of the manifestation and what she did, right? So unlike E.O. Locker Jr., where we would have seen he had grown, to be a huge successful man in using the law and persisting in it, right, and building his belief. With her, I don't know her future. I just know from that incident where Neville talked about it in one of his lectures. So I don't know what her future was like. But if it was that, she had stopped there thinking that, it would have happened anyway, and that her wonderful human imagination, right, is not God, and that she cannot create consciously, right? If she kept up that same disbelief that she had, even though she manifested it, well, that is how her life would be, living in the living with that third dimensional way of thinking, right? Without knowing or without believing that she can co-create her world, consciously, right? So that is the difference there between her and E.O. Locker Jr. If it was that she continued with that type of disbelief, right? So as you can see from both examples, E.O. Locker Jr., he had no belief whatsoever when he first started, right? She had some type of belief, not full belief, but she went back to the disbelief in terms of the act when it did manifested, right? But E.O. Locker Jr., what you can see from him was that he persisted, right? He backed up the some type of belief with persistence, which eventually led to deeper belief, which eventually led to him knowing, right? And that is how he became so successful. And as I said before, I placed the links with E.O. Locker Jr. Interview in the description box. So feel free to go there and click it and check it out. All right. So that was my views on you don't have to believe. You don't have to believe in order to manifest. But with belief, as you can see from E.O. Locker Jr., right? With belief backed up with persistence, right? You can have the most amazing life, right? With no worries, right? You can experience heaven on earth every single day with no worries, right? Because know, right? With practice and persistence, right? That you are the co-creator, right? Of your own reality. That you can co-create your world consciously. and you can live every single day the way you want to live it. All right. So I just wanted to share that with you all today. Right? You do not have to believe to manifest, but with belief along with persistence, as I said before, you can experience heaven on earth every single day because you now know that you're the conscious creator of your own reality. All right. So with all of that being said, I am Be Floss to God, and I'm sending you my love, peace, joy, abundance, prosperity. As usual, if you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe to my channel right now and click the notification bell for more videos to come. More successful manifestation stories I will have to share, and also more content for y'all. Okay, for those of you who have been supporting and still supporting, much love to you. All right, I am Be Floss to God, and I'm out.